Joe, I am very excited because it's been a hot minute since we've had a guest. And this week we have a guest. He didn't pick this episode, but the reason why he didn't pick this episode was because I said, Brian, my good friend, what episode of the OC do you wish to do? And he responded with, they're all so good, just surprise me. So the Goodbye Girl it is. Nice. Brian Rodriguez of the High School Slumber Party podcast. Welcome to White People Problems, an OC podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I hate you guys because I watched a lot of OC to prep for this, and I am addicted again, and I can't wait to talk about it today.
Just when you thought you were out.
They pulled me back
white
in.
White people problems just pull you right back in.
Ain't that the fucking truth?
So let's get started. This episode, the only note that I have about the cold opening is that this might be literally the closest the intro music has ever come to cutting off someone mid-sentence. It cuts into that theme song so fucking fast.
Oh my God. I hope, as you go along in the seasons, we're just going to get mid-sentence cutoffs with, the California riff. That would make me so happy. And we return right after it. That'd be fun.
Yeah. My thing that has so far been my favorite moment is when it's some seriously sad shit that's happening, and then it's immediately followed by that upbeat piano.
Yeah, I love it.
It's
something about drugs,
Yeah.
And then we have to kill them.
There's a severed head on the kitchen floor. Yeah.
But here we are. We're back in Newport Beach. I'm excited to see Anna's still there. Not so excited by the end of this episode. but yeah, I mean, Anna, a character that I've loved from the second she showed up on screen, still loved her as she boarded a plane to Pittsburgh. So
surprising no one.
Yeah, I mean, the main chunk of this episode, in my eyes, is, oh, cool, Seth is still a raging narcissist. The man has it all and still is she can only be leaving because of me.
Is this the first time, Brian, we have someone who is a teen movie, high school movie aficionado. Is this the first time that we're getting a running toward the plane, but a platonic running toward the plane? Not a romantic running toward the plane?
It's a very good question. Probably, because everything's usually romantic, but there's romance elements. I'm so fascinated by this Anna thing on this rewatch. By the way, I don't know if I can use this terminology, but this rewatch of the OC has been incredibly triggering to me. So I went to high school the same time as the OC was coming out, right? And I didn't like it in high school. I didn't watch the OC in high school. I thought it was all the cool kids watch that. I'm not going to watch that. And I've been catching up on it, watching it over time. I did my first watch in college, but I think I have finally enough years away from high school and from when the OC came out to really watch it, even beyond nostalgia. But I know, Matt, you say you're a Seth Cohen, but I was a Seth too, and I see Seth make mistakes that I made and the narcissism that I had. And
that's what's so stressful about it, right?
I'm stressed. You're right. I'm stressed.
Yeah, I'm watching it now, and I'm thinking of every single time I made a situation about me in high school and college, and I remember this piece of advice that ironically did come from one of the most narcissistic people I've ever known, and I won't call them out by name, but they were having a moment of self-realization, which they then completely negate it and then just continue to be the same person they always were. But they're I'm realizing that it's really unfair for me to cast people in roles of the movie of my life that no one asked to be cast into. And it's wow. I've done that too. I think that we all do that, right? Because we're all the main character of our own story. If we thought that we were the goofy sidekick in our own story, that would be a problem.
But I want to be now. Like as an adult, I just
Yeah.
want to be the goofy sidekick. I feel like that's easier, but definitely at the time, that wasn't the case. So, oof, this episode. I'm glad you picked this one because, like, again, I related to it a lot. And
Yeah, you're like, I had some shit I got to work. Well, and this episode does have some really good lines, both like comedic lines and sincere lines. There's a beautiful scene early on where Marissa sits down next to Luke. Nice continuity. I forgot that Luke played guitar, so seeing him just like strumming on the guitar outside in the quad was good. But she literally asks him for advice on like, you had to see me with Ryan all the time. How did you do it? And I actually love his piece of advice of the sooner you realize it can never go back to the way it was, the sooner you can move on. That is actually genuinely good advice. Like if I had anyone come up to me about how do I get through a breakup, that is probably the best advice I could give them is like,
Yeah.
accept things for how they are and move forward. Like,
Can I just say that, like, on this rewatch, I cannot, and I know you guys have echoed this a little bit, but I cannot believe how much stuff happens in season 1. We're in episode 21, and I feel like characters have developed 90 times over. We're talking to Luke again, and he's suddenly like wise from his breakup. But like, again, I binged this in like a couple days. For me, like 2 days ago, Luke was this like dumb idiot boyfriend who didn't know his way around anything, just this like stupid jock, and now he has wisdom to give in this episode. So. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, and you're right, we do touch on this a lot throughout the show, but like, case in point, I really thought this Theresa Eddie thing was going to go for episodes on end, and I'm sure there's still plenty of time for them to come back into the picture, but as of now, it feels like it was just a 3-episode arc, and now by the end of this episode, it's time to move on to the next random experience happening in Newport Beach. Like, everything is both so dramatic and important and then so immediately forgotten. Like, it's basically like Oliver Who at this point in the show. Like, this was a horrific, terrible thing that happened in Newport Beach, and he gets like little more than a slight reference in conversation now.
Like not even a reference, like just like a bit, just be like, oh, the manic depressive, or whatever it is that Seth says.
Yeah, it's insane. That's the stuff that's insane. Other thing that's insane is that Marissa's little sister showed up, and I swear to God, it was the first time I've seen her since episode 1. I didn't know who it was for a second.
That's the thing, is that like they didn't show her in like any of her riding gear or with her pony china. So like, how do you know that's Caitlin if you don't see Caitlin with the only other like defining characteristic besides the fact that she's the daughter of Jimmy and Julie Cooper?
My question is, where does she live? Because I feel like we follow Jimmy and Julie constantly, and she does not seem old enough to just be living on her own, emancipated from her family.
You know what? I think probably what's happening is that Kirsten and Sandy's maid, who we don't see anymore from season 1, is probably taking care of her. They're living at the model
there's
home.
Probably a great sitcom. There's like a great sitcom of the two of them living together that we're missing out.
Oh, man. So I am a sitcom expert. I love sitcoms. Obviously, this is not a sitcom. But it comes at an interesting time because did I binge up into this episode? Yes. But I felt like I didn't have to. This is when TV still cared about like if you were just popping in for the day. Like like you said, it has like that... the catch-up part, right? But also in the dialogue, it's always reminding you of things that happened earlier in the season, which is kind of nice if you're popping in. Like, you could have... this show could be running on a linear TV network, and it wouldn't take you long to catch up to all the characters. And there's a nice little beauty in that. Like, you think of a show that's popular today, like Succession, right? Like, you can't pop into Succession. And they're gonna have like a hour and a half conversation at a table, and the dialogue's gonna be great. The dialogue's gonna be awesome. But if you don't know how you got there, you're not gonna know anything going forward in the show. This show, I feel like you can pop in anytime, despite the craziness.
Yeah. I think that it's adorable that we still try to do stuff with like shows like Yellow Jackets and Succession where they still do the previously on, but it's like in 15 seconds they try to tell us everything that happened over 4 seasons to get us to a point in a very dense show where every single line of dialogue has some type of referential subtext to like something else that like happened in character growth. And it's like, oh man, I missed that in the 15 seconds that you just cut a collage of like, here are 4 sentences from the last episode that you should remember while watching this episode. like that's what that happens where that's more egregious in next week's episode where like the previously on has not one but 2 like them watching a TV show just to remind us that this TV show exists.
Is in universe, yeah.
Yeah, like it's like that we need both of those? Not really. I want to talk a little bit about Kirsten and Sandy though, because you know that I love Daddy Sandy. I love that Kirsten really tries her best to not let Sandy break his like moral code. Like as soon as she finds out what's going on within the father's company, she's like, no, I don't want you anywhere near this. I will take the hit. Like, you're a good man. You have your ethics. Like, I will defend that. Now, Sandy Cohen will do whatever he can to protect his family. So obviously he's going to break his own ethical rules to do that a little bit. But man, their conversation after the fact towards the end might be one of the sexiest conversations that has nothing to do with sex I've ever watched in television. Like, it is, I mean, I guess it's a little bit to do with sex because he makes some like, oh, I'll take the handcuffs kind of joke. But I'm just like, why is this scene so like,
well, he's
so
talking about
sexy?
Prom night, right? He's talking about like, you know, be like prom night, but whoever's taking the hand, and I'm like, whoa. Anyone remember like the internet circa 2003 when, or no, circa 2001 actually, when like fleshlights were starting to be a thing and like their advertising was like tight, just like prom night. Like that's immediately where I went with this.
Yeah.
You might have to take that out, Matt.
Good for the conversation, though.
It's good for the conversation, but it's just, but like to your point, though, that is what I'm thinking about with it. It's like you're right. Like it is it's like a very knowing thing to say between like, you know, a husband and wife, but it also has like no right to be. It's just it's literally the mere suggestion. Yeah, he's talking about going to prison. Like he's talking about his wife going to prison.
But that's their story is definitely like barely has screen time. We're in the full point of the show of the OC where whatever the adult drama is like just some little breadcrumbs to make sure that they hit the 43-minute mark in the episode, because we've got to focus on, we've covered most of the Seth stuff here. Seth just being convinced that Anna couldn't possibly miss Pittsburgh. She has to be fleeing the state strictly because she can't stand to see the love of her life be in love with somebody else. And then
question
it's just
for someone. Question for you, Matt, because you are a resident of Pennsylvania. When she lists the things about like why she misses Pittsburgh, is any of that valid? Like, are those actual reasons someone would miss Pittsburgh?
I can categorically say that one of the things I couldn't wait to get back to when I left LA was the seasons. Like when she's like actually having seasons, I was like, yes, very much so. Because it's kind of like living in California for me, and you know, I only was there for 6 months, so it was a very small sample size. But like living there was this element of like, this doesn't feel like Halloween, because it feels the exact same way that it felt in June, July, and August, just like people have put some spooky shit outside, versus like when you're walking around and all of the leaves have fallen off the trees and there's a nice chill in the air and like people are bundled up extra tight and you're like huddled together on a cold hay ride going around as like actors jump out and scare you. Like, I don't know, there is an element of like, oh, it feels more like the holiday to me. but that's also because that's all I've known for most of my life is that. So like
Sure.
having it where it's just like it's just sunny all the time. It's beautiful all the time. I don't know. There's a very brilliant philosophy duo named Beavis and Butthead who once said that if you didn't have things that sucked, how would you know when things ruled? And like that's how I feel about the seasons.
Fair.
Is like you appreciate spring and fall and summer because you deal with the bullshit that is winter every year.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What do you think? What do you think Anna's life was like back in Pittsburgh? Because she sort of enters this world, this wealthy, Orange County world, somewhat seamlessly. Like she's different, but is the first episode we see her in the cotillion one? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
and
actually, yeah.
She's not like, oh, I don't want to do this. She's a little reluctant to do it, but she still gets in the dress and does. Like, I wonder if she's like of Pittsburgh high society, or she's just like some hipster chick who moved over to Orange County.
See, this is the thing that's confusing to me because obviously I don't live in Pittsburgh. I don't know Pittsburgh. But I don't think of Pittsburgh as a hoity-toity city with a lot of like
no blue-collar town for
debutante balls. Yeah, like you know what I mean? Like she's like not only is she introduced doing a debutante ball, she's introduced in that episode as also needing to leave to sail for 4 months or something.
Which
so
is weird. Like, how do you get into sailing in Pittsburgh? Like on a river? That confused me.
That was going to be my next point. Like, it's a very landlocked location.
Could it be that we should have had her be from Baltimore?
Yeah,
because I feel
great.
like Baltimore, with its proximity to like DC elitism and water and all of those other things, it would make more sense. Also, it has like a little bit of an artsy side in addition to being like a like southern, also pretty fairly blue collar town. But like Pittsburgh really just doesn't make sense. Again, I don't know why she misses it there because it sounds like she's a much better fit in Orange County.
She really does. So look, I love Pittsburgh. I love visiting Pittsburgh. And of course, every city has high society. So it does kind of make sense to me, though, that like if she's high society in Pittsburgh, she wouldn't seem like Orange County high society.
Sure.
But her interests, are what confuses me. But maybe that's why she thought she might like Orange County briefly until love was unrequited and she missed the seasons and such.
Yeah,
even though that's not her reason.
Yeah, I also think that Josh Schwartz just picked a random East Coast city and called it a day. And he's like, I don't know, Pittsburgh's got a bit of a music scene. That seems like it's a Anna spot there. Good enough for me.
She honestly seems more Philly than Pittsburgh, right? Like
I would agree with that. She definitely has a Philly vibe to her. I would buy, like, when they said Pittsburgh, I'm like, she's from Pittsburgh? Like, it really caught me off guard in every way imaginable. So, yeah, obviously, yeah, she could go home for 1,000,001 reasons that aren't Seth Cohen. It doesn't change the fact that maybe she cares about him as a friend. And, of course, Seth Cohen, still in his egotistical way, can read a note that's coming from platonic love and still read it as, like, a unrelenting, like, you've ruined me, Cohen, and need to rush to the airport to beg them to stay.
And also, like, the narcissism, right, of, like, Ryan literally just got into it with a random dude, fell into a pool, and it's like, why
He's
did
like,
you
you need to drive me?
Yeah, I was like, part of me is like, Seth, you are giving main character energy. You are quite literally not the main character of this show.
Yeah. Yeah, you are the comedic side relief. You literally say it in like the second episode that you understand where your spot is. But I have to laugh because I wrote a note that said, it's not a fancy dinner without Ryan getting into a fist fight in a giant public way. And then not more than 5 seconds later, they actually acknowledge it in dialogue. When
as well they should.
I'm just so embarrassed. She's like, I just got into a big fight at a fancy party. And Marissa goes, actually, not the first time this has happened. So, like, the amount of times, there's no fancy party that doesn't end in fistfights in Newport Beach. That's what I've landed on.
Yeah, how many, like, actual brawls did you see in high school? Because it's been half a year. I guess it's been, like, almost
brawls like the
here.
ones in this, I've seen 0.
That's what I mean. It's literally like watching wrestling. Like there's a lot of like melodrama and a lot of dialogue, and then suddenly people get into a fight. It's interesting, but it's almost like if I was thinking this while watching this episode, if a fight didn't happen here, I'd almost be disappointed because that's just what happens in the OC.
To answer your question, Brian, 5, probably 5.
Nice.
Like, not even kidding. Like, easily over the 4 years, probably 5 brawl type things where like people were running and like aides had to come and break people up.
Well, we've gotten. I
but
think
see,
more
your
than 5
full
here.
count of 5. Yeah, you've gotten more than 5 in a summer into early spring so far in Newport.
True. But we were not as high, you know, we weren't economically as well off as the folks in this movie. You know, maybe on like, you know, the axis is like, you know, the more money you have or the more money your school has, the likelihood that everyone's going to be pissed off at each other.
And then the only other plot point that we do need to bring up is that at this point, one person has figured out what's going on with Julie Cooper and Luke, and it's Jimmy. Another character who, if you had listened to me in episode 1 and 2, I would not have anticipated being one of my favorite characters on the show. But here we are. I'm a Jimmy Cooper stan. I'm still a Sandy Cohen stan, and I love me some Luke. But yeah, Jimmy just kind of finding out and just kind of pulling Julie aside and being like, look, this is gross. like, let's just call this what it is, Julie. This is disgusting. This is your daughter's ex-boyfriend. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's like, look, Julie, we know that you miss 18-year-old Dick because, I mean, that's how we got together. But no, this is gross. It would crush her. And this is where like I'm starting to eat my words from the beginning of us doing the show, where I was like, Julie Cooper is just trying to be a good mother. In this moment, she's just trying to get a nut, right? Like she's just not.
But this is, again, I can't help but wonder if what we notice in the OC is like writer ADD, or if they start something and like this, the Luke Julie Cooper thing is told so quickly over the course of 3 to 4 episodes that I almost wonder if someone in the writer's room was just like, are we really doing this? Like we should stop. And they're like, yeah, you know what? We probably should stop.
But this is still an era where that is actually a thing. Not to question again, but so we're in season 1. We're at 20. We're at episode 21. Succession has only had 32 episodes, and it's in season 4. Like at this time, how many? I mean, you guys would know more than me. How many episodes to the finale? It's close, right?
There's like 6.
6?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
So
left.
think about it.
It's a 27 episode first season.
So you get like 27 episodes of hour long, 45 minutes, hour, however you want to say it, a year. You know the writers are just putting stuff on the chalkboard. And hey, what if Julie Cooper had an affair? They throw it in, see if it works, and if by 3 or 4 episodes doesn't work, they might yank it again. And like there's a beauty to the art of that we'll never see anymore, that when I watch, I get nostalgic for that. The idea that like, hey, let's try something. If it doesn't work, whatever. We'll just scrap it. It's just it's so bizarre, and I love it.
I still can't wrap my head around the fact that it is a 27 episode season. That is like it's such a random number, but like also I'm like, what did they think they were making? I Love Lucy? Like what show ever got more than 22 episode seasons at this point?
WB/CW dramas. That's just what you did. You just cranked them out. Like this is something too that like, you know, obviously you mentioned I already host show High School Slumber Party. And I do movies. I don't do TV shows, but watching this TV show makes me really want to go back and look at these shows, because high school was just 4 years. It felt like an eternity sometimes. The drama that was probably 2 weeks long felt like it was weeks long. And this is like one of the closest things I've watched that like mirrors that. And that's why it's like boggling my mind. That's why
Yeah.
I need to, like, I'll do it along with you. I won't cut you, but I'm definitely going to do this OC rewatch with you guys because it's been awesome.
I heard someone say something the other day, and they're literally just stating a fact, but it was like, I had a moment sitting in my car where I said, fuck, that's true, isn't it? And all they said was, you spend a hell of a lot more time being old than you spend being young. And I was like, son of a bitch. I was like so upset by how true that was. Because, yeah, pretty much from the second I graduated college, I have officially hit adult oldness. And it's just been getting older as the years go by. But, like, I think it's why people get nostalgic for their younger days, because, like, you really don't get to live your life much like that any point after maybe 25. Like, at a certain point, you're just like, all right, now I got to get like a real actual job, and I can't see my friends 7 days a week, and I can't, like...
You also can't treat people like that. You could treat people a lot differently in high school, and the stakes, they feel high, but they're a lot lower.
Yeah.
You know, you can't, I mean, you could try to be Seth and be that selfish with people, but it's not going to be endearing as a 4-year-old, you know?
No, and as someone who like works with a lot of high school kids, like the stuff that we're seeing in the OC, like obviously it's to like an absurd level, but like the cattiness, the backstabbing, the like the grudges, like it, you know, a movie that came out last year that I absolutely adored, Do Revenge, like that is still what high school is like. Like there is still that how dare you scorn me, I will try to ruin your life type attitude that, like, as you get older, you're just kind of like, fuck that person. And you just move on with it. You don't, like, decide that you're going to dedicate a year to meticulously plotting out a way to ruin their lives on the same level that they've ruined yours. Quote unquote, quotes around the word ruined in both of those cases. The OC, man, this was a tasty piece of drama, I would say, for the most part. But I still think that we're Joe, and I think Joe has hinted this in the last couple episodes. These last few episodes, it really feels like they're just kind of filling time to get to the end game right now. Like Oliver seemed like the logical end of the season. You're not going to top the Oliver stuff, and it's like, so I do think it's so funny that this Theresa Eddie thing is, again, I don't know, something could happen in the next 5 episodes, but right now it just feels so inconsequential to everything else. I mean, Joe hasn't said his catchphrase when a character will never be seen again yet. So,
so just because, which actually it's a great segue, Matt. This is not the series wrap on Anna.
Whoa! All right.
You're right, yeah.
All right.
Just like, don't hold your breath. Okay. But it's definitely not the series wrap on Anna.
All right.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
Let's talk about music real quick. There was quite a few songs that showed up in this episode. There was Alone by the Trespassers William. This song plays when Ryan and Theresa are sitting in the car trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Seth's favorite band of all time, Death Cab for Cutie, shows up with the song A Lack of Color, which plays as he says goodbye to Anna. Interpool with The Specialist plays when Ryan and Theresa have sex as Eddie stalks them from the car. Separate Ways by Journey plays as Ryan and Seth rush to the airport. And finally, Nada Surf's cover of If You Leave plays as Sandy and Kirsten talk, as well as mirroring Seth and Anna's quote unquote final conversation by the airplane. So we'll start with our guest, Brian. Of the songs I named, if you could pick one song to be the song of the episode, what song would you pick?
Well, first of all, like, I don't know why. I mean, I do, because I was a hipster brat, but that's why I didn't like the show in high school. But I love all the music in the OC that we've seen so far. I loved this music. Like, I was a huge Rooney fan. Me and my wife saw Rooney a couple years ago here in Brooklyn. Like, I love the soundtrack of the OC. With that being said, I feel like I have to pick If You Leave by Nada Surf, because of the High School Slumber Party connection, as it is a song featured in 16 Candles that they cover here, mirrored in a different way. It's more of a Can't Hardly Wait scene we're getting, but
Is it 16 Candles or is it Pretty in Pink? Why do I think of that as Pretty in Pink
I'm pretty
song?
sure it's 16 Candles. Oh, no, you're right. If You Were Here, it's 16 Candles. Ooh, faux pas right there. Yeah, Pretty in Pink. Pretty in Pink. Regardless, I love both soundtracks. I have both soundtracks.
The only reason I knew that to correct you is because that was also my pick for the song of the episode. I mean, not only is it a great song, Nada Surf, very underrated band. If you only know Nada Surf for their only hit single, Popular, man, you need to do some digging, because if you're listening to an OC podcast, you will probably love everything that they put out in later years as just being pure schmaltzy indie rock hipster music.
I didn't know they covered this song, and I was like watching at home going nuts. I'm like, what? This is fucking awesome.
All right, Joe, are you joining us as well on the If You Leave train, or did you stray away?
Separate ways, man.
Oh yeah.
It's separate ways. Don't mess with Journey. Like, when you hear that, like, that synth, that I'm like, whoa, that's the kind of energy that we're bringing to this chase. And then to see, like, I think I said to myself, when Ryan gets on Journey, I was like, Ryan is to Journey what Julie is to Bob Seger, that Chino Riverside, that Chino Riverside thing. So yeah, I mean, yes, the cover is good. I actually really like that cover. I think it fits perfectly, especially with kind of the putting it in its like context of the genre with the like airport goodbye. But yeah, I mean, what made my heart sing was like we don't even get to the lyrics. It's just that beginning part, the entire opener of Separate Ways.
So I had a next door neighbor who, I swear to God, Joe, only owned Journey's Greatest Hits. And not only did this man only own Journey's Greatest Hits, he owned it only intending to listen to 3 songs on that album over and over and over again, which was Wheel in the Sky, Any Way You Want It, and Separate Ways. And he had the most powerfully loud booming stereo system. So in the summers, we would be in our pool just hearing those 3 songs on rotation for hours, literal hours. Even with that childhood trauma, yes, but Separate Ways would have been my second pick after If You Leave. I mean, it's just an iconically great song, and I agree with you. You hear that synth part kick in, you got to be a little pumped up.
Just a little bit.
It also honestly mirrors my high school, because like I was listening to these sort of indie tracks, but also you would take my iPod, the iPod Nano, and a Journey track would pop in there from time to time.
Hey man, Steve Tyler, man, he had the pipes. Steve Perry had the pipes. Yeah, Steve Perry. All right, well, last thing on this show is we got to talk about some pop culture. Well, actually, we're going to do 2 things on this show because we got a guest. First of all, Brian, I want you to tell us a little bit about High School Slumber Party, a show that I love. It seems like currently the plan for 2023 is just to talk about the new movies that came out in 2022, but I believe we've come around that bend finally, and we'll be getting some more episode-specific content very soon, correct?
That is correct. I've recorded a couple of them, and waiting to edit them and put them out. But I've been doing High School Slumber Party a long time now. We talk teen films on that show. had a blast. It's been a weird and strange journey, but finally got a little bit more time to get back on that horse, and because I haven't covered a lot of classic movies. I mean, I've done many, but there are still some that are still on my bucket list, and I will not be put in a box on the ground until I do all the classics. So
Yeah.
that's coming up.
I feel like that's a thing that happens with a lot of podcasters. I know with like Horror Movie Night, we're currently in this like post episode 400 where suddenly we're doing all these movies where it's like, I can't believe it took us 400 episodes to do this one. But I think that there's a point where you want to prove yourself as an expert. So you're like, well, anybody could talk about Can't Hardly Wait or 10 Things I Hate About You, but only so many people could talk about Whatever It Takes and get over it. So
Hell yeah.
You
Two
dig
of my
your heels in
favorites.
early. Dude, both of them are masterpieces. Yeah, it's a great show. Joe, you would absolutely love the show. Brian, one of my favorite podcasts. I look forward any time that I wake up and see that a new episode is waiting on my feed. So it was a pleasure to have you on. But now, before we wrap up, we need to talk about pop culture moments. What is a pop culture moment, be it modern day, in the past, or somehow if you have superpowers in the future that you want to talk about real quick before we sign off? Because as we say on here, the OC, man, it was a moment in time. It was a pop culture moment. SNL sketches, soundtracks selling like crazy. People knew who Rooney was suddenly. It was a wild time because of this one show.
Well, quickly on the Rooney front, it was not really a pop culture moment, but I have to put this in. I do have another podcast, Uncle Francis's Wine Cellar, where we talk Francis Ford Coppola movies. And Coppola connection here is that, of course, a Schwartzman helps write the theme here. And then another Schwartzman is in Rooney. And they're both in the Coppola family tree there. But when I think of Rooney, I posted this the other day, and I guess you guys have touched on this a little, but the fashion in this show brings me back to such, again, a moment in high school, and specifically the store Hollister, where I shopped a lot. I hung out a lot because they had a front porch. And I wasn't into Abercrombie. I wasn't into some of the other stores, but something about that Hollister, California vibe got me that I could still smell that Hollister cologne and perfume. I could still feel the puka shell necklaces. It was just such a moment that watching this show, I said to my wife in the car, I'm like, we have a small apartment now, but if we get a house where we can host people, I want to throw a Hollister party. Like, I just want to throw a party where people are wearing Hollister clothes and we're playing the music of the OC, and it's just a chill vibe, and everyone's got jeans, and we're having a good time. So I don't know, past, present, future.
That's
I want
awesome.
to recreate that pop culture moment for myself. So you guys are invited. So
Yeah, I think you just described Joe's next birthday party.
Maybe if I could hire the guys who hung out outside of the Hollister, but like the age appropriate. Hold on, Brian, you'll appreciate this. Then the first time, I'm from Guam. The first time I ever walked into a Hollister was in high school. It was at like not even the best mall in San Diego, but it was like just like a small local mall. I walked into a Hollister, and literally as I was walking in, like the lights, it was like, that perfect kind of like set lighting where it's like just like lights illuminating the sweaters and the t-shirts and the shorts. But as I'm walking in, it's the opening guitar riff of Dare You to Move. And I was like, this is kind of magical. It's like, welcome to the planet. And I'm like, wow, is it like this every single time someone walks in here?
That. It's awesome.
I actually have a playlist on my phone that I made for some friends who are going on a road trip, and it's called "Did I Just Walk Into a Hollister?" And it's like what I would imagine is like the soundtrack of a Hollister Aeropostale American Eagle type store, but also like the OC and Veronica Mars and all of that too.
That's the vibe. You got it.
Yes,
I
love that vibe.
Perfect. All right, Joe, what is your pop culture moment you want to talk about?
I'm currently obsessed with what I'm saying. I'm just going to set the bar really high right now. I'm currently obsessed with what I believe to be the best and most interesting television show that has premiered in 2023, which is Beef on Netflix.
Ooh.
Oh.
It is so great. It is the first time in a long time for a movie for a TV show that was not horror related, where there's a moment that happens in one of the episodes where I literally like lost my breath and like was genuinely shocked at what I was watching. Like it was a mixture of shock and peril, and that's difficult now, right? Like that's really difficult how saturated we are, especially me, how saturated I am, not only with just horror stuff, but also media in general. But Beef is just so specific to a like Asian American experience, and specifically like a Southern Californian Asian American experience. And it is like the best. Steven Yeun is firing on all cylinders. Ali Wong is amazing. I think she's. I heard a podcast describe it as like her kind of Jim Carrey turn, right? Jim Carrey.
Okay.
Bryan Cranston turn, where she's like pivoting from like comedy into doing more dramatic roles, and it is delightful and dark as all get out, but it is what I'm currently obsessed with, and I can't wait to like rewatch it in like another month or so because it's really good. So Beef on Netflix. This also might give a little bit into our process about when we're doing this show, when we're recording, because it literally just came out like a week ago.
All right, well, I'm putting Beef on my list. So I talked about a couple, it may have even been a few months ago, that one of my pop culture things was that I'd finished watching Friends. Well, there was one piece of Friends stuff that I still had to watch, and it feels appropriate to talk about it right now because last podcast that I did with Brian was tied to Friends anyway. We were talking about the Rembrandt's I'll Be There For You on One Hit Thunder. I finally watched the HBO Max Friends reunion special that they did. And man, what a mixed bag that show is. like, have either of you watched it yet?
Oh, I watched it the night it came out.
I was in Seattle with my family.
The stuff that's like the mini documentaries stuff, the parts that are great are the parts without the live audience and fucking
James Corden.
What's his face?
James Corden.
James Corden. All of those moments are so rough, but like the parts where it's just them alone, like reminiscing about the show and walking around the sets and like the talking heads from fans all around the world, like that stuff is so well done and so it is the most mixed bag reunion special I've ever watched, because it's like, get rid of the James Corden live stuff, just get rid of it, and then you'd have the perfect way to do any of these reunions, because I don't think at our core most of us want a movie or a new season of a show that we love. We just want to see the people that we like talk about the show that we like.
Yes.
And like not tamper it. Like
absolutely.
Like every once in a while there's like, oh, Bill Lawrence thinks that there still might be one more season of Scrubs, or there might be another Scrubs movie. And I'm like, no, it was good. And then ABC made you do that weird intern season. Like, just call it. It's perfect. Just put them all on a show together on a couch and let them talk about their favorite memories and be done with it.
Show us that you love it as much as us watching. Right?
Yes.
We don't need,
or at least pretend. Pretend to love it.
Pretend is even better sometimes. But yeah, no. James Corden was one of the producers, and he was like, oh no, I was just trying to help my production company, but he just wanted to insert himself in that universe and do that part. Yeah, that part was not, it was cringeworthy, the part with him.
Yeah.
But like just the natural, if they were faking it, they felt so natural when they were on the set, just talking to each other, reminiscing and
finding their signatures on parts of the set and stuff. Like there was emotional moments in that special. None of them came from James Corden.
No.
Yeah, sorry to end on a bad taste, but that was truly I remember when that got announced, people were like, no fucking way. Like no one thought that it would happen. And then COVID made it so that it almost didn't. And then there it was. But yeah, it was It definitely was a pop culture moment, and it was like 75% great. And that's all I'll say about that. Brian, thank you as always. You're always a pleasure to have on any show. I'm so excited to hear that there's a lot of High School Slumber Party locked and loaded and ready to come down the pipe. So I will keep my ear holes ready for that. Joe, next week it's just you and I all over again for some more white people
It's
problems.
a good episode, though. Sorry, not to cut you off, but next week's episode, good episode.
Yeah, for sure.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.